Do what the business is. It's yours truly, LT the Don Juan. Good morning, America. We right back at it. Last time we talked, we took a dive deep into the pool. But see, in order to understand what's going on from the perspective of a mad man or a mad scientist, we have to, as an investigator, think like the mad scientist. But see, we not just thinking in a low state of being. We thinking from an investigatory state of being. We thinking like the Lord would think. You know. See, we can't have the mind of God, but we can have the mind of Christ. And see, we can't have the fullness of all that is, but we can seek out all understanding. See, we living in a time where information is available. We living in a time where the media is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We living in a time where as soon as something happens, it can be put and broadcast to the world in an instance, right? So with that being said, we talked about cloning, right? We talked about just the esoteric, how God can be seen through just observing entertaining factors. We talked about that through Bernie Mac in some way. We talked about the episode, season 2, episode 10, right? The sin cup, right? And we pretty much expressed that sin cup in multitudes of different facets. I showed y'all Kobe Bryant and how he was on that episode in some type of way, in a matter that seems very deeply to me. Because when all the idols was getting thrown in the trash can, if you will, in the pit, if you will, to me that symbolized the angel and the trumpet, if you will. Because Dizzy Gillespie, right, the trumpet player. Kobe Bryant, the Black Mamba, if you will. So to me, that symbolized, right, the Los Angeles Lakers, if you will. So he symbolizes to me an angel. And then I think about the angels surrounding the lake of fire, right? They all are harpers and playing harps. Remember, we broke down the harper through the San Antonio Spurs. But we're going to continue to break down these allegories and analogies. Sometimes we have to look at geography. Sometimes we have to look at numbers. We've expressed these investigatory tools that I use. Sometimes we investigate dates. A lot of times I use the Eve's birth date formula, which is the Christ birth date formula, right? The Eve, the birth in the first 24 hours of Christ's life, which is a total of 3 days, right? We use that Eve's birth date formula to investigate some of these occurrences. That's how I found the season 2, episode 10 on Bernie Mac, and it having any biblical references at all, right? Also, the 210 representing the birth date of Christ. Well, we know that the 210 really represents 110, right? Because we know the calendars have been messed up throughout history, or changed, I should say, throughout history. February should be the first month of the year, if you really think about it, which it is when we think about the Chinese zodiac and different things like that. Kind of the month of Aquarius. So that could be like the end of January, early February. But that's why you see that in the far east on lunar solar calendars, if you will. But continuing on, right? So the 110 is 210, right? And you can tell by just how you count. You know how you count from 12 to 1 o'clock is the first hour, right? So you have to count from 12 to 1 in order to get that entire hour. So you start from February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, right? So boom, that's an easy way to tell that 210 is actually 110. But continuing on from there, we're gonna continue this narrative. So we know the NBA Finals just ended, so congratulations to the New York Knicks. Boy, I just had to take a recovery just from the butt whooping Oklahoma City Thunder took. And then I had to take another recovery from the butt whooping that San Antonio Spurs actually took. You feel me? That was like a double entendre, like on left cheek, right cheek. So I had to recover from that, you know what I'm saying? But congratulations to the New York Knicks. It's all esoteric in either some way, shape, form, or fashion. So everything that we are watching, everything that we see in those aspects are just layers of esoteric or occult knowledge, whatever you want to call it. And before y'all get hung up on words or meanings, I need y'all to get 1984 double speak. The whole thing is to change what things mean, change what words mean. See, whatever the popular narrative of a word is becomes the kind of the theme behind it. So you might not understand what any of that stuff actually means, and then you start thinking on these low-minded levels. So I try to be responsible with the things I do and or say. I try to use my information for those who it's for. If it's not for you, if you're not where I'm at, then this information probably is for another time, another day, another year perhaps, another lifetime maybe even. But if it is for you, then it is for you. I believe that a lot of these things are common sense. When God opened my eyes up to all of this understanding, it seemed like the more complex things were, really the more simple they were. We just like to oversimplify, complex things. You know what I'm saying? And make it more harder than what it is to conceive, perceive, and or understand. It's really not that difficult. 210. When you break that 210 down into formulated matters, or 2 9 through 11, as I expressed as Eve's birthday formula, if you will. When you put that together and you just multi-dimensionally layer that in many ways, shape, forms, or fashions, it begins to express itself in many forms, fashions, and ways that you should be able to perceive that. If I give you the information, it don't have to be so heavily burdened on you. Remember, Hollywood, politics, religion, it's all meant to saturate you in some type of way to where you really fall away from what you feel you want to believe. You know what I'm saying? Having said that, I've seen things that would be considered blasphemous. I've seen things that would be considered atrocious, abominable. I see that the power that they do possess. Are you trying to show the raw truth? Or are you mocking the truth in front of the masses of people? Because now I realize, depending on your demographic, where you live, where you may be from, if you from a country, small town, or rural community, or a big city, those can have constraints on how you are perceiving things or receiving things, right? And they put this capacity in everybody's hands no matter where you live, right? So I can see how things are operating on different scales. People live in different spectrums of life in some way, shape, form, and fashion. We done created terminologies for these type of realities. But continuing on. So today, we're gonna revisit the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs. I found some peculiarities just in the whole sequencing of that event, and we're gonna go over that. But today, I want to go back to May 30th of this year, because May 30th was Game 7 of the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the San Antonio Spurs. I was outside at about 9 o'clock that night, and around about 9:50, almost 10 o'clock that night, I looked up in the sky as I usually do, and I observed these phenomena that I see flying around oftentimes that have interesting interacting capacities, whether they some type of drones or things of that nature. I've lived in situations where life shown me pretty much what aerial phenomena are. Even living in Oklahoma, staying right off of Tinker Air Force Base, I've seen stealth bombers, I've seen Predator drones, I've seen all the unique flying capacities that the military probably has to offer. And I lived on military bases for over 18 to 20 years. Having said that, I think I can identify designated flying vehicles. I understand that some military capacities have certain capacities that will be questionable, but the things that I have observed are pretty unique and interesting. So on May 30th, Game 7, where Oklahoma City Thunders lost, like I said, I salute to Oklahoma City Thunders. Best of luck to you next year. You know what I'm saying? Y'all a strong, competitive team. I know y'all gonna continue to do big things. But moving on from there, I just saw some peculiarities that night. When I looked up in the sky, I saw one UFO at first, but then I seen two of them, and they was kind of flying in league like this. I guess they was headed south, kind of south west in a way. So as I'm recording them, though, pull out my phone and recording them, I began to see hundreds of flashing lights around them in some stationary manner. And I'm thinking I'm tripping, so I'm holding my phone trying to keep up with the one that I'm trying to record. And as I'm looking up, I'm seeing like paparazzi flashing lights. Now, hopefully in this footage y'all can see it because I tried to post it on TikTok. I tried to post it on Facebook. I tried to post it on different platforms, but it seems like the lighting that's on my phone that was able to capture such an event like that, when I try to post it to y'all, for some reason, it's only showing probably the two or maybe possible three phenomenons. One is a planet, I'm pretty sure. The other two are phenomenons, right? UAPs was what they call them now. I guess they don't like using UFOs no more. I guess they know that they must have been able to identify something about these things in some case. But continuing on, talking about unidentified aerial phenomena, we gonna pray. Anyway, continuing on though. So this night while I'm recording them, I'm gonna play the footage right now, obviously. But there were hundreds of these flashing lights surrounding these two orbs. I don't know if the flashing was like Morse code or communication to them, but I know they can communicate in ways that we don't think about, for sure. I've experienced it in some way, shape, form, or fashion in the past. Maybe even now, I think they have some unique way of communicating in a way. Because the way they lights flash, or the way they just disappear in certain ways, and then they continue to do these repetitious patterns of a certain kind. It's something unique about how I've observed these phenomena. I need a good camera, better than the one on my phone. That way, I can probably really get some good footage of these things. They don't have no problem showing themselves, and they show themselves abundantly. Like on this footage right here, it's hundreds of them. Probably more than that, but if anybody can see the lighting on here really good, or they can get an idea how many flashing paparazzi UAPs that they can see in this footage, please make me aware of it. Now, this right here brought me back to 2023, because within the past 11 years, from 2015 until now, I had probably in my entire existence seen what I could say on my hands is that I've probably seen 10 or better UFOs. But it took me 10 years just to see those 10, right? In the past 2 or 3 years, I'd like to say, that number has blown through the roof exceedingly, and there's been an uptick or an upbeat into these phenomena that are happening, and they probably happen in more places than just in Oklahoma. But I've seen these things on a regular basis now, to where if I had a better lens or a better camera or something, I could probably better observe these things. Sometimes I see them in capacities that I really wish I would have caught on camera. But continuing on. So these UAP or UFO phenomenon takes us back to Eve's birthday formula. Remember, 210 is the 110, but 210 in this time is 210 because it's the future. So that shows me God's impossible capacity to communicate Jesus Christ's birth and his date, in a sense that, well, it's 110 then, but now it's 210. See, February in some way, shape, form, or fashion probably would have been the end of the year back in at one point in time, which means it would have been in another month or something like that, right? But it probably would have been like more like December, right? This is the whole aspect of the first and the last, the beginning and the end, the alpha and omega, and so on and so forth. But when y'all get to understanding that, y'all will get to seeing it in a way that God is actually expressing that through Christ's birth date in ways that have applications beyond the simple fact of his birth date. like I already showed y'all in 5, right? The 0 and the 1, right? And superposition and so on and so forth. I've kind of repetitiously showed y'all this in different ways, but we'll continue to build on that and continue to grow. Remember, the San Antonio Spurs themselves are the 210. And this investigation of these numbers is what's going to take us back to a particular Olympic. But let's continue on, right? So, February 10th, 2023, Dead Horse, Alaska, right? There was a unidentified phenomenon that was shot down. Now, many speculate that these were weather balloons, Chinese satellites, surveillance, but you know, what I like to go based off of is what were you guys reporting at first? So we're gonna do a surveillance of February 10th of 2023 because I began to believe that around that same time is when I started probably seeing more of these phenomena than I really ever seen in my life. And I'm almost gonna want to say that's probably the same year that the movie Don't Look Up came out, and that's probably the same Super Bowl year that they were showing you the Don't Look Up or the alien commercials where people was paying attention to everything but the sky, and it's UFOs just in your face, and then every time you look up, you know what I'm saying, they not there or whatever the case may be. I'm gonna have to find that and show y'all this. Um, the whole point is that the aliens seem like they wanted to get y'all brains turned into noodles. How y'all not perceiving, conceiving, or believing anything, especially the things that y'all probably say y'all believe. But we not gonna judge people on based on that. I'm just saying it the way I see it. People probably think that I'm the worst possible person on earth. Don't know nothing about me for real. And if they do know anything about me, then they should know enough to know that I'm actually a decent, good person. They should know enough that I ain't got to prove none of that to y'all. You see what I'm saying? What I'm doing right now is obedience to God, which means I'm sharing information. I'm putting stuff out there that I feel is on my heart, that God would want me to do and share with y'all. And however God performs and acts in that, I'm going to trust that He going to perform and act. Like, I don't know what that is right there. It might be the sun just peeking in. But hey, it is what it is. We're going to continue on with this narrative though, right? So February 10th, 2023, Dead Horse, Alaska. You got to think about that. Because this is the year of the fire horse. And when I think about fiery horses, you know, I get to thinking about the book of where Elijah, which I might believe is in 2 Kings or something like that. But see, in the book of Elijah, where there you go again, 2 Kings, I believe it is. But Elijah and Elisha, they have their unique, intimate moment in chapter 2, verse 9, 10, and 11, which is the Eve's birth date formula, right? Expressing Christ's birth date, right? So in that, I get these aspects of what we're talking about today when we're talking about UAPs and UFOs and unidentified aerial phenomena, which we also know were spoke of in the Bible. 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 9, 10, and 11 expresses this intimately because I believe the Eve's birthday formula throughout the Bible is very intimate when it comes to details about who Christ is in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So in 2, 9, 10, 11, Elisha is asking Elijah, well, when you go get caught up with these chariots, can I please have a portion of your gift? And Elijah like, man, if you see me caught up, then hey, I'll give you a portion of what I have. And remember, he was given that mantle or that cloak. But continuing on, like a garment or a covering, if you will, right? But continuing on. So we want to further observe Dead Horse, right? Because we know this is the year of the fire horse. And when I think about a dead horse, I think about the 4 horses of the apocalypse or the 4 horses of the book of Revelation, right? One of those being a dark horse or a pale horse, I mean. And that pale horse has Hades or death following behind it. We know that Hades is symbolic of Pluto, and we know that Pluto is the Roman god, and which in Greek mythology is Hades. But we also know that Pluto is a planet, right? Or used to be a planet anyway. So Pluto, right? Dead horse. Now, what is going on in this scenario about this UAP in Alaska being shot down? Let's observe the area codes, because God is speaking to us in a way that we have to observe the numerical aspects in Greek and Hebrew Strongs, right? Because we know Greek and Hebrew breaks down every word into numerical value, and when you read the grid, or when you read the geography, or when you investigate, sometimes you can go ahead and investigate those numbers. So the area codes for Dead Horse, Alaska is 907 and 659, right? I'm just being funny with the extra. 659, right? But anyway, we got 907 and 659. So 907 means in Greek to baptize, to immerse, to dip. Woo. Woo. See, now I feel like this is a baptism that's different than being baptized in water and being baptized to be repentant, right? This this baptism is simply speaking of the one I think Christ was talking about, where he knew that it was a fire coming, right? And how he wished that fire would have came on this earth. But see, first he had to be baptized in the sense that he had to die. He had to go into death, right? And until he sealed that deal with life and death in a way that is beyond most people's comprehension, if we really had to express why Christ had to do that and why any man had to do something like that whatsoever, it's deeper than what most people is gonna know off the top. This is esoteric, deep seated, sought after with your heart, mind, and your spirit. And if you're not seeking it in that matter, you'll never get it. Whether you know the math, whether you know the science, whether you know any of that, if it ain't in you, it's not in you. And I'm not trying to offend you, but continuing on. So Christ knew that a baptizing of fire had to come on this earth at some point in the distant future, right? So I think that the baptism in that way, no matter what type of fire that is, whether it's a spiritual fire, whether it's a literal fire, whether it's a physical fire, whether it's a metaphysical fire, that fire will come on the earth and baptize. Now, in past shows, I showed y'all that on a TV show called Heroes about this particulates hitting the earth. Let's get baptized. Borealis in places that it usually don't hit the earth. That this narrative was in a TV show back in the early 2000s and all the way fast forward into the 2020s, how these phenomena recently have happened in the past, right? So we seeing stuff happening on TV happening in real life in some type of way. And that these phenomena from the sun or this aurora borealis is supposed to give people some type of capacity and or ability, right? So these are things I've been sharing with y'all, and I've compared and contrasted these with movies from the 80s, movies from the early 2000s or TV shows, and movies or TV shows from the 2020s. How they repetitiously keep reiterating different bits and pieces of the truth to you in some type of capacity, like it's leading up to some fullness of a climax of a kind, right? But continuing on. So 907 is to baptize, to immerse, to dip. 907 also means linens, like your clothes. So what are we baptizing? We obviously baptizing our linens. It also means alone and apart. So we know when you set apart, that God is keeping you opposite or in different, holy in some way from the general populace or the general masses. I don't think they got nothing to do with you going to church every Sunday, every Wednesday, every Thursday, you counting the collection plate and keeping accounts of things, and you in the choir and you singing. Like, yeah, all of that's good. But at the end of the day, when you set apart, it don't come with everybody gonna be liking what you want. Nobody received none of the prophets. They probably hired prophets in front of those prophets to put those prophets in a hush mode, right? Not that that kept the prophets quiet, but we know that some of the prophets ran from God, right? Right? We know some of the prophets tried to run from God, right? Because they didn't understand that God's authority obviously is over anybody who's gonna portray God. right? Whether that's a her or a him or a them, right? Whether that's a Baal or an Asherah, right? Continuing on. Those are Canaanite deities, if y'all don't know who Baal and Asherah is by now. That's why I say, if y'all ain't where I'm at, then it's going to be hard for some of y'all. But continuing on. Now, the funny thing about linens alone and apart in Hebrew, it actually says the word bad, like B-A-D. So obviously, what got to get baptized? The linens, the things that need to be alone and set apart, the bad need to be baptized. Now, I don't know what that's totally speaking to, but I can see it. I done watched it. I observe just like people observing my life. I'm observing their life too. See, they got to tell their truths through art form. They not going to sit there and just pour out to you what they really, really doing in Hollywood, what they doing in politics, or what they doing in any realm of the elites behind them closed doors. They going to life imitate art to you, and you going to think it seem real familiar, and you might like, share, subscribe, and support it. But continuing on, oh, how we love the drama, right? The next area code is 659, right? Which means to put off. It also means to lay aside all the bullshit. Continuing on. Because, see, y'all can play with the man all y'all want to, but God is observing all of these patterns. He's seeing what y'all doing on every level of petty. He's seeing how y'all think y'all know something and don't know nothing. That might go for me, too. But I'm not using my gifts for ill, and I sure ain't watching people to get creativity and inspiration to reiterate it to them in some type of way that's not positive, that's probably negative, that's probably violating in every way, shape, form, or fashion. But, we're going to continue on. To put off, to lay aside, right? Right? That's 659. It also means Ephah, which means to breathe of nothingness, right? So just like God breathed out of nothingness, some people gonna understand what that mean one day, in the sense that if they don't put off or lay aside the things that are bad, right? If they don't get baptized in the way that they supposed to, spiritually speaking, because you can go immerse yourself in any body of water, that ain't helping nobody. I already know better. I done seen it already happen, boy. Some people can go get baptized 100 times if they want to. If it ain't real, it ain't right. And it is what it is. Continuing on. Everybody like support groups. Everybody like a support system. Everybody want to be validated and received. And everybody wants a family or a group in some type of way. But some people want that more than they want God. So that's what they gonna get. Trust and believe me. If you really set apart, it's gonna seem like people misunderstanding everything you stand for. I promise you. If you set apart, you're gonna know the truth. It's gonna be bittersweet. The truth gonna hurt, but the truth will also make you free. And see, only somebody who God take through that experience themselves is gonna know what those words actually mean. It sound good in a worldly sense, right? But when you really know what that means, it's gonna hit different. Continuing on. Because God breathed out of nothingness everything that is. That's talking about practically Him creating superposition, zeros and ones, and the material realm, if you will. And if y'all don't lay aside and put aside all the BS, all the things that we know that might mean to us personally, if y'all don't put those things aside, man, I know people probably know what's happening right now. No matter how straight or better off or comfortable they are, that don't mean they don't see what's going on in the world right now. That is not just specific, strategic, organized chaos. That's engineering, because that's God's will. I showed y'all in the book of Revelations how they was going to hate the harlot. They was going to hate the whore who rode on the beast, right? And how that God was going to put it in their heart to do something. Those 10 horns, or those 10 men who had authority like kings for 1 hour, it was in their hearts to do God's will. And y'all got to understand what God's will is at the end of the day. Sit at my right hand. This is Psalms 110. Remember, the 110 is 210. That means some books in the Bible ain't going to have a chapter 2 verse 9, 10, and 11. It's going to be verse or chapter 1, verse 9, 10, and 11. So sometimes that 210 is going to be 110. And Psalms 110, which is the book of Psalms, has the most probably books in it to even go up to a chapter 110. But Psalms 110 is sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool. God telling you that just chill out until I make the world a new world order. I'm going to bring all the enemies of the world against one cause and or purpose. Might be Israel, it might be who knows. But we're going to bring the world against one cause. And then once they come under that one authority and that one umbrella, God going to do something that I guess people keep miscounting what's really going on here. But continuing on. Dead horse, if you will. That horse got to get baptized because the horse is dead. The horse need to be brought back, if you will, right? Continuing on. See, the dead horse going to become the white horse, if you will. And with the white horse is going to be a rider and a king or a conqueror going on conquest, right? Something like the sun, if you will. One of the four horsemen, king on David's throne, right? Jeremiah told us that. But continuing on. So, now that we've observed these UAPs and these phenomena, I don't know why they were over my particular area of Oklahoma City that night and how I ended up capturing them that night. But I do know it was Game 7. I do know that a lot of people probably were in town, a lot of celebrities, or probably a lot of these people that were within one of the three realms of entertainment, politics, athletics, religion, you name it, right? Remember we had the nuns at the games, we had the Baptist choir at the games. Boy, they was spiritual in every way, right? Scary Movie 6 seemed like it was telling it all, the state of this world. Is something got to be wrong, boy, because that movie ain't right in no way, shape, form, or fashion, right? And I hope some of y'all ain't watched it. Because we got to know that got to be in your face telling you what's really real. And it seemed like they mocking what's real to some degree, man. Like, who put... Like, come on, man. I ain't finna get into everything about that movie. But it's some realities in it. But I think it's scripted. Everything got to be manufactured in some way. The New Yorkers all coming out to beat up the black and white Grim Reaper, right? We gonna talk about that. Because we know the Grim Reaper and the black and white, all that represents the San Antonio Spurs in some type of way, right? Because Victor Wembanyama, right? And we know Yama is the god of death, right? I showed y'all that in Hinduism and how he rode on the black bull, right? But continuing on. So, we know that the area code of the San Antonio Spurs is 210, which is Christ's birthday, right? Now, the New York Knicks is where it gets interesting because we fly several hundreds of miles away, all the way up to the northeast, right? The Big Apple, right? All the way to the Garden, if you will. All esoteric, right? We fly all the way up there to where the Statue of Liberty is, right? To see her children, right? She sits on many waters, right? She represents many nations, right? We fly up there where the forbidden fruit sits at, right? And we have this mass game, right? Now I showed y'all how on K-Pop Demon Hunters, which is a cartoon movie, right? How they were using arenas and stadiums to gather the energy from the crowd, right? From the fans, if you will, right? And that energy was somehow boosting hell in some type of way. This fire that was in hell, right? And they were singing the song about can't let the fire go out because the fire needed this energy to seem like to stay alive, I guess. Now, I don't know how we talked about in some of my past videos. If you're catching on, you're catching on. Everything go together. It just would take me literally probably a lifetime of videos to show y'all this stuff. Probably because I need to learn how to chop it down. But I be liking to talk. But anyway, continuing on. So, 212 is the area code of the New York Knicks, right? The New York Knickerbockers, if you will, right? 212, right? This brings me back to the Olympics, if you will. 2012 Olympics specifically. See, in my last videos, we talked about some few set things. Talked about Epstein, right? We talked about Epstein Island, Little St. James, Great St. James, right? We broke down possible eugenics and cloning and different things of natures that seem beyond belief, maybe in some way, shape, form, or fashion. But we're just investigating these things to provoke thought. Believe what you want to. Don't believe nothing I tell you, because obviously that can be irresponsible just to believe the things I say. I know these things from a standpoint of understanding and knowing. And me sharing these things is not to influence people ill willfully, So I'm trying to be responsible with the things I do and or say. But you have to be responsible yourself, that if you're gonna delve into these things, that you have to have a sense of maturity and capacity to learn, know, and or understand these things. And that's at your own discretion. But continuing on. So 2012 Olympics is very particular to these things. But maybe we'll finish breaking down these particular characters, because I want to break down some particular things that are important before we get to the Olympics, right? So, we know that the New York Knicks was on a 44 winning game streak before they lost the game in the season and postseason, right? In the playoffs, they had won a total of 13 games on a winning streak, right? Before San Antonio won that one game that messed up their whole little streak, right? It'd have been 40 games. It probably would have been 45 games and 14 wins. But see, I think they were being strategic in the 44, and I think they were being strategic in the 13. See, we understand that number 13 represents many different things, right? But we also know 13 a lot of times refers to these 13 particular families that people say run the world, if you will, right? So when we refer to these number 13s, we're referring to the 13 families. Now, we know we can talk about 13 tribes of Israel, 13 colonies. We can start talking about 13 in many different facets in many different ways. But today, that 13 is going to apply to those 13 families, right? Continuing on. So, I believe that the New York Knicks won on 6/13. This is where I believe the esoteric could come in, right? I showed y'all the blue, orange, and white chakras and how they represent good or bad things, right? How the orange chakra could have a lot to do with some over desirable, fulfilling desires, right? But continuing on, I think that's what's being represented here. We know New York got everything to do with the Clintons, everything to do with Epstein, everything to do with Trump. You gotta kind of start following the bread trail. You seen all Hollywood out in New York, New York. Now, I ain't pointing no fingers, because any of them ain't necessarily been brought up in no way, shape, form, or fashion. But anybody know that them files probably got some names in there that was probably at that arena that night. Guaranteed.
Something my Miami and St. Thomas connects. I never mention your name, I promise respect. Death before dishonor, correct? Rape and pillage of village women and children. Everybody wanna know what my Achilles heel is.
I guarantee it. But anyway, continuing on. A lot of people, a lot of celebrities was out that night. Who knows, right? Who knows, right? So what is significant about June 13th, right? Well, June 13th is King Charles' fake birthday, right? His birthday really supposed to be November 14th. But for some reason, with the color guard, he celebrates his birthday publicly on 6/13. Now, I thought that was interesting because Donald Trump's birthday is on 6/14, right? So I found, what's the odds that the king over there and I guess the alleged king over here, right, birthdays coincide, and why do he celebrate his birthday on 6/13 when that's not his birthday for real anyway, right? To coincide with the color guard and celebrate it publicly with his people, I suppose that's cool, but we know King Charles was the king or the Prince of Wales for over 64 years. Remember Bad Bunny had on that number 64, rolling in my 64, right? We know that 64 really is 666.6, right? But continuing on. So, what is unique about King Charles? Remember, Wales' symbol is the red dragon, right? And we know that this red dragon is symbolic of the dragon in the book of Revelations, right? Now, I feel like that dragon is a spiritual aspect of things because we know that the dragon gave its power to the beast, right? And that's what I'm telling you about possessions and stuff like that. See, I don't believe in possessions and different things like that. The angels are angels, whether they good or bad, whether they fallen or they still celestial hosts in league with God. Angels are angels. The whole demonic thing is the possession. So a human being is a demon, practically, and them being possessed by these spiritual entities is the demon, right? The angels are the angels. The angel influencing you in a negative way is a demon possession. And that go both ways, whether it's with the Holy Spirit of God or whether it's the spirit of the devil. You got to take good and bad, and you got to understand both of them. See, people start to say Luciferian and satanic. You don't realize Lucifer and Satan is biblical based. And so if you gonna run from that, that's, to me, that's weird. Because you accept God. You know Raphael, Gabriel, Michael, Angelo, Donatello, and all of them, right? I'm being funny now, but you know all the angels, that's the good ones. You know the bad ones too. And you reject understanding what even got them in trouble. You reject understanding what even the lesson was. What was the disciplinary action? You don't want to understand how to get back to point A. Because the only way you're going to know is by understanding the totality of the story. Trying to hide from the devil is not going to work. Because that ain't even happening in the world that I'm looking around at. I just sat back. I don't even know why I watched Scary Movie 6. We going to pray. I don't even know why I watched it. Boy, because something can't be right with that shit. I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. Like, they just laughing to me. That, like, they know what's going on. They probably even know how it's organized and playing out. Probably ain't considering A, B, C, D, E, F, or G. Pretty sure. Money is more important, and that's, if you ask me, that's probably some of their God for real. That munyan. But hey, I ain't gonna blame nobody for finding out that somehow they want to feel that that's more important than God. And if they tell you otherwise, whew, you can't pay me to do certain stuff and say certain stuff. And I tell you, I'm a human being. That alone is going to have me having to stand before the Lord. Let alone you going to pay me to influence people or to... Whew. Boy, yeah. I know the world fucked up like that for real. But boy, man, wow. If we can continue on somehow. So, because of the Scary Movie 6, I mean, dang, boy. So, what about this 613 and 614, right? Trump and King Charles, the Red Dragon, Prince of Wales, right? Over 64 years, right? So we know that the Knickerbockers actually represents New York Dutchmen from the early 17th century, right? So on a series, remember I showed y'all these cartoon series, Hero Ball and stuff like that. They had a cartoon series of the NBA where the New York Knicks were pirates, right? And so were the San Antonio Spurs. They had Wemby looking like One Piece and stuff like that, right? But anyway, we have these Dutchmen, though, these New York Dutchmen. This all ties back into the Pirates of the Caribbean and the Flying Dutchman, which is a pirate ship where all these dead bodies their souls get trapped to become pirates on this ship, and they get trapped at sea for eternity, I guess, or something like that, right? So you have this Flying Dutchman, right? They capturing slaves, all these bodies that been dumped over or killed at war and captive to the abyss or the ocean. They all been given up to this Flying Dutchman ship, right? Pirates of the Caribbean, right? And that makes me think, because when you look up Epstein Island, when you look up where that's located at, all that stuff is located in the Caribbeans, if you will, right? The Caribbean islands, if you will. Little St. James and Great St. James, right? But continuing on. So, we know that SpongeBob SquarePants was associated with Bikini Atoll and Bikini Bottom, all that being over there in the Caribbean, right? All that being over there in the Caribbean. Now, naturally, if you look up in story time, we know Disney and stuff like that. I'm finna go into Peter Pan for a very particular reason, right? Because we know there's a lot going on. But how can I articulate this in a way that it shows you how they speak in ways that they not really speaking it plain? Okay, so Never Never Land, practically for all intent purposes, is supposed to be in the Caribbean, right? That's why you got Captain Hook and the pirates, this, that, and the third. But I did some homework because something about Never Never Land sounds like Hyperborea and the Garden of Eden and all these other places, because it sounds like a oasis and a lush, plush place where you happy all the time, there's plenty to eat, and you don't get old, right? So it just sounds real familiar to some places. And I was like, how can I geographically locate um, Peter Pan and Never Never Land with somewhere that has to do with those places? And the only way, I did this on Chat GPT, and the only way that Never Never Land, because they give you directions to Never Never Land at the beginning of the movie, and that's in the Olympics. That's why I'm bringing it up now. But continuing on, the reason that I looked it up, I was like, well, what if the Earth was flat? I was like, if the Earth was flat with these coordinates, where would Never Never Land be? And that's how I lined it up. I took Never Never Land from the Caribbeans, made the Earth flat somehow, and then got the directions. And those particular directions would lead you to what seemed like Hyperborea. I'm just saying, they that slick. Now let's go to the Olympics with this, because I'm curious. New York Knicks, area code 212. So we need to go to 2012. These are athletes, basketball players. Therefore, they are Olympians by some measure, right? But before we go there, let's break down some things, right? Even further, right? We have our hero of the day, right? Because, you know, these characters, we got Jalen Brunson, which we know is the healer and the son of the brown one, right? And we referred him to a likeness of Christ in some type of way. And we referred him to the book of Isaiah chapter 11 because he's the number 11. We know that the number 11 also represents the apocalypse, which is a revelation. So he is the child of revelations, and he is also representing the one in the book of Isaiah 11. This child who will rule over a new period and era where it seems like the earth is at peace. They're going to beat the weapons in the plowshares. They're not going to use weapons anymore. The animals is not going to be eating each other and running from each other anymore. And things is going to seem really odd and out of place to people who've been living in this type of trauma for so long. We probably don't even know what we living in. We just used to it. We like people getting water thrown in their face, and we like disrespect and drama. We like seeing people get whooped on. We can blame that on Looney Tunes or somebody. We've been watching people get beat up and laughed at for eons, you know, and we've been laughing at that shit in cartoons and every other facet, right? But continuing on. So the hero of the day, besides Jalen Brunson, right, which we already expressed his Christ-like characteristics, is OG Anunobi, right? We got to break this down further, right? We've already spoke of certain Anunnaki deities through Ben Haddad and the Oklahoma City Thunders, right? Ben Haddad had popped up simply because of the earthquakes I expressed to y'all that happened in February of 2024, which was the year of the Oklahoma City Thunder's 2024-25 season, right? So there was some unique phenomena at the head of the year to lead the Thunder into their victorious pinnacle, right? However, 11:30 is when that earthquake had happened, around about 11:30. So we looked up 11:30 in the Greek and Hebrew Strongs, and it pointed out Ben Haddad to us. We know that Ben Haddad is the son of Haddad, the thunder god. He got the bull horns. We can identify the lightning rods. There's a lot of details about him where we can identify who he seems to be and or represent in some facet or another, right? But we're going to break down OG Anunnaki, right? Because to me, OG means original God, but lowercase g, right? Original God. Now, we have to break down his name, Anunnaki. I think some of y'all already can put two and two together, right? But Anu, right, is associated to Anunnaki, right? So we know Anu is the head god of Mesopotamia, right? When we talking about mythology and certain geographic locations, Anu is the head god of the pantheon of Mesopotamia, if you will, right? So some of the details about Anu, if you will, it says also known as An, right? A-N. The divine triad. He sits the highest level of heaven and forms a powerful ruling triad alongside his son Enlil, the god of the air and earth, right? And Enki Ea, the god of water and wisdom. Continuing on. Ro, he is the source of all cosmic order and the ultimate grantor of earthly kingship. That's crazy. But continuing on. Mythological presence. Though theoretically the highest authority, Anu is often Itios, distant, inactive figure who delegated day-to-day power to Enlil, right? However, he appears in classic texts like the Epic of Gilgamesh and the myth of Adapa. That's interesting. So, boom, you got Anu or Enlil in league with each other. So, if the dragon was to give his power to earthly possession, then Anu will be the dragon giving his power to Enlil. But we gonna continue on with the narrative because see, God is the unknown God. That's why people a lot of times don't know how to put two and two together when associating him with any other culture or the Bible or etc. etc. See, in Hinduism, Brahma is like the overall God, which Brahma is a bull, right? Christ represent a bull. That's why he's the Aleph Tav, the Alpha and Omega, which is the Aleph Tav. The Aleph Tav is a bull hanging on the cross. I showed y'all that in past videos. But continuing on. So Anu and Anunnaki, OG, because remember he hit that tip off that putback from Brunson, right? Because Brunson shot that 3 in brick, and did Anunnaki shoot that in brick? Anyway, Anunnaki came in like the light bearer, right? Like he was the Statue of Liberty, and he tipped it in as if he was like the light bringer, if you will, because the light bearer always has his chosen one or his child that it's gonna bear, right? And in some way, shape, form, or fashion, all these characters are zeros and ones breaking down into multiples. So the Godhead this is the Godhead breaking himself down into multitudes, right? So his characteristics can be seen through all the players in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Now, here goes Victor. OG Anunnaki. See, I was finna put him and Wimbyama together. Because honestly, Victor Wimbyama should have been in the box. He is the keeper of death, if you will. He the god of death symbolically in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Now, even though that can break down into Christ-like aspects and representations, I told y'all that the Christ-like figure often can become sacrificial in some way, shape, form, or fashion, right? They have a rise and they fall, and then a resurrecting capacity, if you will. So that's what was happening here in that whole instance. Now, if you watch Scary Movie 6, it seemed like they was telling you that the New York Knicks was going to win. If you understand that Wimbyama represents the Hindu god Yama, the god of death, then you can look at the Scary Movie Scream character like the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper is also symbolic as the god of death also. And the Grim Reaper usually is Father Time or Kronos or Saturn, if you will, in mythology speaking. But continuing on. Now, Anu also can be broke down into Anun because it's Anunnaki, right? So we have Anu, then we have Anun, right? Anun itself breaks down into one who has come to reap wealth, right? It also means dark clouds, right? Now, Christ or God, in the Bible, which I think Christ is God in the Bible in some way, but If y'all don't know the story in no intimate detail, then I can't tell y'all how Christ was before Abraham. And y'all gonna have to learn that on your own time. But anyway, often in the Bible, God is associated with the dark cloud. When Jesus was before Elijah and Moses, a cloud covered them, right? A cloud covered Moses on the mountain. A lot of times these cloud coverings show up. Now, have I experienced that in some thought process or another? Yes. And I just didn't know it was in the Bible also. But continuing on. Yeah. And Nun also means human and is also associated with Adam, right? Okay, I had to make sure I had it. A Nun, right? A Nun, right? Because each detail of these names are important, so if I find something or come across it, I want to express it in that detail. So it also means brighter than 1,000 suns. That's important. We know Christ is likened to the sun, or a sun, if you will, the morning star, if you will, right? Lucifer is also likened to a morning star as well. All of the angels are likened to morning stars. That's why the Bible says, and the morning stars sang, if you will. They talking about the angels. Now continuing on, right? So, brighter than 1,000 suns. So we have OG, original God, lowercase God, right? The God of the head of the pantheon of the Anunnaki, right? We know that Ben Hadad was the son of Anu, right? But continuing on, right? So we have Anu and Nun, and then we have Obi, right? Obi means servant of God, right? Like Obadiah, right? It also means Father's heart, or heart of the people, if you will. That is an Igbo or Nigerian, right? Continuing on. So we have this Anunobi, this Anu and Nun, an Anunnaki, Obi, servant of God, one who has come to reap wealth, which is interesting. Now we know his number is 8. That's interesting, right? Because 8 represents Kobe Bryant in a way, because we know Kobe Bryant was also number 8 as well, right? We know that the number 8 is the Chet, just like Chet Holmgren, how we talked about before in my past videos, right? So we have 8, which is the Chet Holmgren, or OG Anunobi, right? Number 8. Now, Kobe himself, we know Kobe itself means God's door, divine door. Chet also means the same thing, right? We talked about this in our last video. Chet is the Hebrew letter, or the number 8 letter in the Hebrew alphabet, right? So Chet means the divine door, or doorway, right? Just like Kobe means the same thing. We know that Kobe is the black mamba, or the snake in the garden, if you will, right? Now, do we associate with any of these Anunnakis with some serpent-like details or another? I'm pretty sure in those stories it breaks that down to a degree or another. Kobe being the black mamba, if you will, right? Kobe associated with the 210 in every way, right? Him and his daughter Guyana, right? Remember, she was 13 when that accident happened. Lord help my soul. Bryant itself representing virtuous one, right? What kind of virtuosity? Because we know Kobe not only represents in Japanese a divine door or God's door, it also represents a black cattle or a black bull, right? Just like the bull that Yama rides on, or the god of death, right? Which Kobe is the black mamba representing a serpent. You need to start putting 2, 3, and 4 together when you want to understand this stuff, right? So Anu is the Mesopotamian god of the heavens, the king of the gods. Anan means dark clouds, human and Adam. We have Jalen Brunson, right? The son of the dark-skinned one, right? The son of the brown-haired one, right? And Brunson also is a version of Brown or Bruni. Bruni is the name of a dwarf in Norse mythology, right? Who represents or symbolizes fire and heat. Remember, Bam Adebayo, 83 points. Number 13, Miami Heat, etc., etc., etc. I've been showing y'all the symbolism and the keys and the connecting of the dots and how all of this goes together, right? Because they pointing out to you, you know, things that I try to do this from the perspective that God wants me to. I am a humble person. I have to humble myself daily in every way, shape, form, or fashion. I don't think I necessarily need assistance in doing that. But there are particular, meticulous, unique ways that life has of presenting to you a bunch of nonsense. And we're going to say that and leave it at that. I guess it's up to you what you decide to consume, right? I'm starting to believe that none of this stuff is meant for your benefit, except that the things that we need to be getting to, which is spiritual technology. All this base down, low-level technology, it ain't meant for nothing good in a way that you probably would like to believe it is, man. Y'all ain't catching on. Y'all ain't catching on. These phones are smarter than they started off in 2008 with the Obama phones and all of that, right? Yeah. So we have the virtuous black bull. Remember, the bull is the sacrificial bull. The bull is Christ, right? I showed you in Mithraism how Mithras represented practically the cosmic. He represented the immaterial. And he was slaughtering the bull because the bull represented himself in physical form, right? Remember, the black mamba or the black snake in the garden is surrounded by the Pleiades sisters. The Pleiades sisters and the star constellation are in the constellation of Taurus, if you will, the bull. The sacrificial heavenly bull, the Apis bull, if you will, right? Continuing on, that's in Egypt mythology, right? Now, let's continue on. Now, in the head of the Statue of Liberty, since the starting 5 represent her children in some type of way, symbolically speaking, they had them lined up in pairs, so I broke their numbers down in pairs so that we can get some Greek and Hebrew methodology from that, right? Through the Strong's Concordance, if you will, right? So 832 means, in the Greek and Hebrew Strong's, to play the flute. It also means shekel, right? So play the flute for a shekel, so a shekel represents money or currency, if you will. Now, what I thought was funny, that see, all these people that's playing the flute, which is entertaining you, which is keeping you with a blind eye in some way, shape, form, or fashion, because y'all cannot see the occult or the esoteric. Y'all don't know how it applies to God, and if you do see it, you're probably only going to apply it to the devil in some type of way. There's no balance. There is no impartiality. You're being very partial in how you see that glass half empty or half full. I promise you, you are. Because I can see somebody right now that'll welcome me, and I see somebody that's supposed to be a God ignore me. Well, which one I'm going to accept if I was in a Christ-like manner? I'm going to go for who see me as I am, not who should know me as I am and say that they know me, but run from me when they see me. That don't even make sense. Continuing on. So 832, right? We combining towns, I believe, and we can pair Anunobis number together. So 832 is towns in Anunobi. Play the flute in a shekel, right? Because on that shekel, if you look it up, there's pomegranates on the back of that currency. We know that the pomegranate seed or the pomegranate represents the crown, and that King Solomon made his crown based off of the shape of the tip of the pomegranate, right? So we know that that pomegranate has a lot of sacredcies when it comes to the garden, when it comes to kingship and esoteric knowledge and wisdom. Now on the other side of that shekel, you can see a cup. Remember on Bernie Mac season 2 episode 10, I showed y'all the sin cup. Dizzy Gillespie getting thrown in the trash, all this alcohol and liquor getting thrown in the trash, and Kobe Bryant getting ripped in half, right? The 210, if you will, right? Being ripped in half, if you will, right? We know that the trumpets will bring down the walls of Jericho with the Ark of the Covenant, right? We know that Christ symbolizes the Ark, right? In a way, shape, form, and fashion. But continuing on, right? So this is all happening in the garden, the Big Apple, right? Statue of Liberty, the light bearer. She's giving birth to her new world order, right? Because that's gotta be the meaning in some shape, form, or fashion. Scary Movie 6 seemed to predict that New York was gonna whoop the living daylights out of a black and white character, symbolic of the Grim Reaper or the God of Death. Pretty unique, right? Yama representing the bull of the underworld in some type of way, right? Now, 1113 is the next number. So I'm assuming that's going to be number 11, Brunson, and number 3, right? Put together. So 1113, who's playing the flute? Because the sin cup and the crown is on this shekel. So they doing it for the sin cup. They doing it for the crown. And it ain't the right crown. Because I promise you, King Solomon symbolized a antichrist in the Bible. He was the very facet of an antichrist. He was the wisest king. Wisdom is God's wife, right? Sophia, if you will. Queen of heaven. However you want to label her. Her many names that she hide behind. That's up to you to have that motion of discovery, right? There's plenty of information out there. I'm not making none of this stuff up. I can't make none of this stuff up. And even if I lie to you, I still got to tell you some grain of the truth. I'm going to keep it pushing from there, right? So 1113, because it's breaking down this even further, right? 832 finna get broke down even further. And don't nobody even know how to do this like I do. I'm really talented to me, whether this is for not, for fun, or for real. Either way it go, this talent to me. And if I had the resources I need, I'd be way colder at this. But maybe that's me being egotistical or something. I don't know. Lord help my soul. Continuing on. Right? So, what does that cup symbolize and the crown symbolize? The sin cup is the cup that the harlot holds. It's all the blood of the saints, right? All her obscenities and her filth and her lies and her fornications is in that cup, right? And that cup runneth over. All her sins done ran all the way up to heaven, if you will. We done talked about this so many times, you probably think I have a problem with her, right? But if it shows up in the esoterica, I'm going to break it down, right? So this money or this currency is really about her, right? Her cup is on one side, her sin cup on the shekel, and the crown or the fruit through the pomegranate, because who ate the fruit first anyway, right? Now, 1113 is going to formulate this even further through Brunson and number 3, right? So 113 means Adon, which means the Lord. What kind of Lord? 1113 also means lawless. So we talking about a lawless Lord here. You hear me? A lawless Lord here. We're not talking about somebody who just a regular person who make regular choices and decisions and or mistakes and they pick themselves up and dust their shoulders off and keep it pushing. We talking about a lawless Lord, kind of like on some Homelander type stuff. Now, see, I watched Bad Boys and I didn't like every bit of what they was expressing on there, but I seen some truth and reality in what can come with power and human existence. But see, when you're dealing with God, God expresses to you the universal order and laws of how having that type of authority works anyway. And anybody who knows the moral boundaries that come with wearing anything that gives you a certain capacity is going to come with some capacities to keep you in check. But continuing on, right? That's just a whole nother story. We talking metaphysics now. If you want to understand how that's going to be possible for somebody to have authority and power more than Homelander, that's just an analogy of a kind. He's just a metaphor of a wicked man with power. We ain't gonna say no names, but we see he didn't show no mercy or no love to nobody, and then when he became regular like everybody else, he practically turned into I'm not gonna say a little what. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just turned into a punk all the way down to the ground. You know what I'm saying? Like stand on 10 toes, whatever you stand on 10 toes. When you walking with God, it's rules and regulations to that lifestyle you gonna decide to live. You gonna have to treat people a certain way, and a lot of times they gonna take your kindness for blindness. A lot of times you gonna end up having to learn how to control your reactions and or responses with people. But at the same time, you gotta stand on business. No matter how you decide to be who you are, you gotta stand on what you stand on, no matter what the perception outside looking in is about. Nobody knows you better than yourself, and nobody knows you better than God himself. I don't care how many cameras you put up and listening devices you put up. I don't care how much you watch a motherfucker 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and imitate that art into life. None of that is more than the capacity of what's real. And we gonna keep it pushing, cause see, if I had to use my gifts for theory, nobody would really like it. I mean, I'm already having to expose the downrightness of things, but continuing on. So boom, we have somebody playing the flute, like a satyr, like a goat man, right? Kind of like Pan, if you will. Remember, we just was talking about Peter Pan and Never Neverland, and how that if you change it to flat Earth, Never Neverland is not in the Caribbean, but it's in Hyperborea. I mean, practically the same coordinates.
People are familiar with the Pied Piper and his abduction of Hamelin's children, but do you know why he took them? If the folklore is to be believed, in 1284 CE, the German town of Hamelin was overrun by disease-infested rats, and the residents were desperate for a solution. Enter the Pied Piper, who agrees to rid the city of the dirty little terrorists in exchange for payment, and the mayor agrees to his terms. Using his enchanting pipe, he leads the rats out of the city into a river where they all drown. Only when he returns to Hamelin, they refuse to pay the piper. So he takes his revenge by using the same pipe to hypnotize 130 of Hamelin's children and lead them into a cave in the mountains where they're never seen again. And I'll admit, this story is hard to believe because it involves a magic flute that hypnotizes rats and children alike, but historians have presented more practical explanations, which you can learn all about by clicking that related video link below.
Do you know that music can be used as a weapon to fight our battles? Let me tell you a story about how the children of Israel used songs to conquer the mighty city of Jericho. When Joshua led the people of Israel into the promised land, they came to a great city called Jericho. Its walls were tall and strong, so thick that no army could break through them. The people inside felt safe, and they shut the gates tight. From the outside, it seemed impossible, but with God, nothing is impossible. The Lord gave Joshua a strange command. March around the city once every day for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets made of ram's horns, and the Ark of the Covenant go with you. So the Israelites obeyed. Every day they marched around the city in silence. No shouting, no fighting, only the sound of the priests' trumpets. The people of Jericho must have laughed, but Israel trusted God's instructions. On the 7th day, Joshua commanded the people to march around the city not once, but 7 times. The priests blew their trumpets, and when they finished the 7th round, Joshua shouted, "Shout! For the Lord has given you the city." The priests blew their horns. The people raised their voices in a mighty shout of praise, and suddenly, those huge, unshakable walls crumbled to the ground. Israel rushed in and captured the city, just as God had promised. The victory of Jericho wasn't won by swords or spears. It was won by obedience, faith, and the power of praise.
Which I find that unique and interesting. Now, the next number we put together is 25 and 23. What is finna to happen through this? See, the whole thing is bringing your enemies under what footstool. Sit at my right hand until otherwise. Psalms 110, which is the 210 for real. The whole point of that is through 25:23, because God wants the meek to inherit the earth. He told you that, right? So it means to appoint the weak, right? It means to appoint the weak. Now, remember, God's weakness is stronger than man's wisdom, and so on and so forth. God's foolishness is wiser than man's wisdom, right? So we know that when God say weak, He's not talking about weak in the perspective of the way we perceive weakness. You know, He's talking about weak in the sense that He knows His weaknesses, and that even His most weakest points is stronger than man's bullshit. Continuing on. Now, we covered a few things in all of those things. I want to go back to the Romance of Alexander real quick, because I showed y'all when we was dealing with the Oklahoma City Thunder, Alex Caruso, which was the little lad or the little boy in Isaiah 11, right? We also showed you Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, right? And we also showed you how Victor Wembanyama was associated with France and Paris and et cetera, et cetera. We know in mythology that Paris was the judge with the apple, and that Paris' name also is AKA Alexander. Now, there is a story called The Romance of Alexander. This is a story concerning Alexander the Great. Now, I wanted to implement this story in the last video, but as we all know, that last video was like a movie practically, breaking down several different things, because the reality of things going on in this world, I'm barely even scratching the surface, really. I mean, I wish I could just show y'all clips of videos and let them do the talking, which I'm gonna do. But I know that I also have to explain to you the realities of these things in some way that's beyond what they giving you. You need precepts. You need information. You need sources, whether they reliable sources or speculative sources. I think everybody, whoever opens their mouth, sometimes it's about money, but sometimes it is about the truth. And somebody who is spiritually in tune know when somebody wants the truth to be the substance and not financial gains. Now, that's just the way it goes, you know. Now, continuing on. So the 2012 Olympics is really interesting to me. The reason I say that is because they incorporated all the villains of Disney on there. They incorporated putting people into a sick bed on there. They incorporated kids being covered by blankets of light on there. They incorporated a villainous Grim Reaper looking like the dude off Scary Movie. But this is Lord Voldemort from Harry Potter, though. But see, he still represents that serpent-like creature, that hybrid creature. You can see it on Harry Potter. He a serpent on there, Lord Voldemort. But they got him in the Olympics as a giant, right? Because the giants represent a particular group, right? The Titans, if you will, right? Kind of like Victor Wembanyama was symbolized as a Titan, wearing black and white. He's the rider on the horse with the spurs. See, he had to go down into the pits of hell, so they were likely not going to win due to based off his symbolism. He was meant to go to the finals, but I think this is about conquering death and overcoming what the Bible talks about in the eternal sense, right? We're supposed to be going into the future. The future pertains to eternal life in some way, shape, form, or fashion, and I think we already a remnant of that in some way right now, whether we know that or not, that there are cycles of this life that happens without your awareness of it. But continuing on. So, in the 2012 Olympics, one thing that stood out to me the most, we had Cruella de Vil, we had the Red Queen, right, off of Alice in Wonderland. They had Voldemort off Harry Potter, right? And then they had all these dark characters. Now, one character that stood out to me the most, because I didn't know who he was the Child Catcher. Who is this guy? The Child Catcher is a guy off of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, where he rides around on a chariot and horse, dark horse, right? And he goes around to capture kids because I guess in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the king and the queen don't want kids to live. And they supposed to be capturing all the kids. I can only imagine why if you really start putting 2 and 2 together. Like, something wrong with people, man. We out here living oblivious to this stuff, acting like because we can wear nice clothes and drive nice cars and pay our bills and entertain people, that there is not something burning going on in this world. Now, I ain't finna sit here and act like I don't live my regular life, drink coffee, eat food, take a shit, and have sex, and scrub my balls. But at the same time, people need to know where the fine line is. And I'm not telling people what to do or how to do it. Common decency should just be a regular thing, man. It should just be, do that have to be a religious law for you to just treat somebody good? To help a person in need if you have the capacity. I know how that can become, but you know, if everybody had their basic needs met, maybe people wouldn't be so needy out here asking for this and asking for that. You wouldn't have to help so many people because the proper constraints or the proper pipelines or the proper infrastructure, and the proper things that are necessary to run something to bring in stability will be present. But instead, y'all want them performing these rituals and these acts, letting y'all know what is to come, entertaining you with it. They was letting you know about COVID coming. They was showing you the repetitious patterning. They was showing you how you was gonna mimic these behaviors and activities because they have you under a state of control that you ain't even aware of. Scary Movie 6, if you watched any of the old ones, told you they using some type of frequency system of a kind or another, whether they was playing that and pretending or whether that's a real application. If I would have fast forward from when they was playing with that on that movie to now, I'd say people are under some state of fucking something. People are under a state of delusion, disarray, disorientation. They not deep thinkers. They don't even think outside of money, sex, or what their desires are. I think they use the Lord sometimes, a lot of times, as a front, because if they didn't, man, when you recognize what's real, you gonna support the real. You're not gonna sit there and mock the real, use the real for entertainment, and everything else that's going on under the sun. Know that the real got the same life circumstances, situations, and conditions you do. But yet, you literally benefiting off of that in some type of way. And I'm not gonna get into that. You must be violating on some level in order to placate these things in your entertainment world. Yeah. All of that nice stuff come at a price. You might be spending time. You might be spending this, that, and the third. You don't have a life, and yet practically 99% of your life must be fake. But continuing on. You got 1% of your life that's real. And you have to incorporate the reality of your life into that life because you don't have no life outside of that. It's everything you're going to ever be and do. Probably never going to have a private life. So since y'all don't have no private life, y'all and other people's life on bullshit. We going to pray. 2012 Olympics showing you all the esoteric. Matter of fact, let's look at it. Let's check it out. Let's get into it. Because all of these things, God gives you a opt out. He give you an opt out of your sins. Like he always tell you there's an escape route. We're not talking about the basic sins that we commit on a regular day, like cussing and fussing and hating somebody or envying somebody or being jealous towards somebody, because we know the things that I'm exposing right here are the worst things going on in this world. And then they probably got people imitating it and living that lifestyle thinking it's okay and acceptable, even though they know it's dark and it's not acceptable to nothing. Like, come on, what? Scary Movie 6 to me say a lot. It tell me that they done something. If anybody went paid to see that and thought that was cool, funny, laugh-atable, or like, I mean, you know, if anybody thought that was entertaining, it say a lot to me, you know. I mean, like, boy, something wrong. I'm telling you that right now. Something is way wrong, Kenny. Ooh, I'm telling the truth.
of the United States fighter aircraft assigned to U.S. Northern Command successfully took down a high-altitude airborne object off the northern coast of Alaska at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today within U.S. sovereign airspace over U.S. territorial water. On February 9, North America...
I ran a photo enhance tool on the supposed leaked picture of the UFO that was shot down in Alaska.
This hour, dramatic new details about the unidentified object shot down by fighter jets just miles off the coast of Alaska yesterday. Unlike the Chinese spy balloon shot down last Saturday, this object demanded more immediate action yesterday. Officials say it was flying much lower at 40,000 feet, making it a dangerous potential threat to civilian aircraft. But now we are learning that U.S. military pilots who approached the craft have given conflicting accounts of what they saw. This new reporting coming in now from CNN national security reporter Natasha Bertrand. Natasha, so this is interesting. This is kind of unusual that these pilots saw different things, and that is sort of, I guess, adding to the mystery of all this.
Yeah, not even the pilots apparently were really able to identify what they saw. And just to take you back for a sec, on Thursday, the U.S. defense officials sent F-35 fighter jets up to try to figure out what this object was that was flying around near Alaska. Those pilots, we have learned, have given very conflicting accounts of what they actually experienced, with some pilots saying that the object interfered with the plane's sensors, other pilots saying that they didn't really experience that, other pilots saying that when they looked at the object, they could identify no identifiable propulsion system, and they did not know how it was actually staying in the air, cruising at that altitude of about 40,000 feet. So this has all added to the Pentagon's wariness of describing in more detail what this object actually is until they can get more information through the debris that they are recovering right now.
And what do we know about the efforts to recover the wreckage of this second object? It looks like NORAD just put out an email a short time ago, and it sounds like they're trying to recover it.
They did, and what we were told yesterday is that the object was shot down over frozen water, so it landed on the ice, essentially. We don't know what kind of condition it's in, whether it is intact, for example, but recovery efforts have been launched, and according to the Defense Department, they have been able to recover a significant amount of debris. Now, notably, they still don't know what this object is, where it came from, or even what direction it was headed in, or what direction it came from. It is just all very murky at this point, but they do say that the FBI is going to be taking the lead on analyzing the debris. If that sounds familiar, it's because just last week we saw that another Chinese spy balloon, I should say a Chinese spy balloon because we don't know what this one actually is,
right,
was shot down, also being analyzed by the FBI. But right now, there are just so many more questions than answers, Jim.
Yeah, and as the hours go on, it gets more and more mysterious. All right, Natasha Bertrand, thank you very much. Let's bring in former...
over small children and destroying them. The earth is reborn and a new age of goodness begins when the Grim Reaper kills the children in their beds. And there's even a big COVID type cold virus. It is a coronavirus right there at the center of it. Why do you think they flaunt such things like this?
After all, isn't there a little odor and all
and
of
again,
it?
if they can put child flavoring in Pepsi, if they can, it's like the golden child. They try to feed him the blood of a sacrificed child to corrupt him. They're showing you every child's the golden child, and they believe satanically they can corrupt you, that somehow it gives them entry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And this is something that's been widespread in Hollywood. I mean,
so let's go to the next clip. There's a longer one of this, but here they are in 1993 talking about a virus meant to bring in total tyranny.
I think we should go with a good old-fashioned public health scare.
A new disease. No one's immune. It's like the summer of the shark, except instead of a shark, it's an epidemic. And instead of summer, it's all the time. That is smoking.
Now, I hate to be the guy who derails what everybody else loves.
He loves being that guy.
But, Janice, we do have standards. This can't be a made-up disease. The only moral thing to do is release a deadly virus into the general public.
We do have something we've been holding on to, but it hasn't been tested. Get over here, NBC.
Well, we certainly believe in testing, but
Wow. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
So, we've got our deadly disease.
In 1994, The Simpsons aired a piece about spirit cooking, where you chop up little children, grind them into sausages, and eat them. Hitler had his blood taken and put in little sausages. He had the higher levels of the SS take like it was Christ's blood. And with this devil worshiper lady the New York Times has been promoting and attacking us for criticizing, you know, she bloodlets herself and people drink her blood. But she says it's not Satanism, David Knight.
Yeah, that's right. Nothing to see here. Just move on.
Before you take over, I wanted to just hit this because this has been really hot on the internet. We covered it back 8 years ago. Predictive programming, internet notes, eerie similarities between 2012 Olympic opening ceremony. We'll roll some B-roll of that. And coronavirus pandemic. This is mass pandemics. Look at the Spanish flu in 1918. A Grim Reaper over them. And then after, it even shows the Grim Reaper right there lording over small children and destroying them. The earth is reborn and a new age of goodness begins when the Grim Reaper kills the children in their beds. And there's even a big COVID type cold virus. It is a coronavirus right there at the center of it. Why do you think they flaunt such things like this?
Well, you see this type of stuff all the time in terms of symbolism that they have at the CERN, center when they had their bizarre opening ceremony that they had there. But this is very specific, isn't it? I hadn't seen this yet. This is pretty amazing. Grim Reaper and the COVID-19.
And a symphony of death killing the children.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, that's kind of interesting because, you know, Michael Moore has come out with his new documentary called Planet of the Humans. And he says, you know, we were lied to about all this renewable energy and everything. It's bunk. And these people are just doing this to make money. Imagine that. He kind of figured that out finally. But his end solution is, of course, the same thing. Kill all the kids. Don't have any more children, right? We got to reduce the population.
And look at this. This is 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Drones with witches flying around on brooms, killing children and sucking them into a black hole. Keep going.
Well, you know, it's always the same solution, isn't it? It doesn't matter whether it's a coronavirus or whether it is the, wow. It's just amazing. It doesn't matter if it's the coronavirus.
It's always child sacrifice. Look, the Grim Reaper is drawing the child up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, 50 years ago, the first Earth Day, they were talking about we're going to have global cooling. It was going to be a new ice age, so we had to kill all the kids. And it was immediately as global warming. They did a complete 180, but the solution remained the same. No matter what it is, it's always
save the surprise. And see, that's what this all is world. And the Pope says we deserve to die. It's for the earth. They're openly giving us their one world religion, their carbon tax, shutting our economy off. And when we submit, we believe we're saving our economy. We're destroying our economy, David.
Yeah, you know, he said we've sinned against the earth, and there were a lot of Orthodox Catholics that pointed out back in the fall when they
Earth worship.
Earth worship. They even brought in this Pachamama, I think, from the Amazon. They had a bunch of Orthodox Catholics threw it in the river there. But now he's saying we've offended the earth. And this is basically what we've seen, you know, from Aaron Darnofsky and Jennifer Lawrence, you know, when they did Mother, ! But, you know, Alex, when he's talking about this and talking about carbon taxes, of course, he's also coming from the liberation theology, you know, the Marxist.
Communism.
Yeah,
well,
exactly. And
Lord Monson broke it down that if they had the 50% carbon cuts by 2025, it'd be 1 billion dead. Well, the UN admits, instead of 10 million dying this year, it'll be 30 million. The UN says with the lockdown. So that's 20 extra million dead, but who cares? It's for the earth anyways, David, right?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. They're going to do that by shutting down the food supply and also shutting down energy. You got AOC celebrating the fact that, you know, you had negative prices on some futures contracts on oil. She said, loves to see
a shutdown is good of the earth.
Yeah.
Even though Venezuela is causing mass death of their own people. Since we mentioned it, here's more predictive programming. Again, right here, you have the Grim Reaper overlooking children with little Grim Reapers grabbing them and killing them and giving them to him. And this being worshipped at the London Games 8 years ago at the Olympics. Here is 1994. So I guess that's 26 years ago. I wasn't even, I was just about to get on air then. Here they are, ladies and gentlemen, showing you what spirit cooking is.
And Tinder. You just cut in line, didn't you? Reported attention, Ooter.
For how long?
Oh, about 7 minutes a pound should do it.
Okay, I got your German grub right here.
Bart, does it strike you as odd that Ooter disappeared and suddenly they're serving us this mysterious food called Ooterbraten?
Oh, relax, kids. I've got a gut feeling Ooter's around here somewhere. After all, isn't there a little Ooter and all
And
of
again,
us?
if they can put child flavoring in Pepsi, if they can, it's like the golden child, they try to feed him the blood of a sacrificed child to corrupt him. They're showing you every child's the golden child, and they believe satanically if they can corrupt you, that somehow it gives them entry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And this is something that's been widespread in Hollywood. I mean,
So let's go to the next clip. There's a longer one of this, but here they are in 1993 talking about a virus meant to bring in total tyranny.
I'd like to call to order this secret conclave of America's media empires. We're here to come up with the next phony baloney crisis to put Americans back where they belong, in dark rooms glued to their televisions, too terrified to skip the commercials.
Well, I think...
NBC, you are here to listen and not speak. I think we should go with a good old-fashioned public health scare.
A new disease. No one's immune. It's like the summer of the shark, except instead of a shark, it's an epidemic. And instead of summer, it's all the time.
That is smoking.
Now, I hate to be the guy who derails what everybody else
He
loves.
loves being that guy.
But, Janice, we do have standards. This can't be a made-up disease. The only moral thing to do is release a deadly virus into the general public.
We do have something we've been holding on to, but it hasn't been tested. Get over here, NBC.
Well, we certainly believe in testing, but Wow. Wow. Oh, yeah.
So, we've got our deadly disease. Now, we just have to blame it on something that's in every household, something that people are a little bit afraid of already. House cat flu is coming, people. The Center for Disease Disinformation predicts with some degree of probability that the house cat flu might spread in the following hypothetical outbreak pattern.
And they're sitting around going, we're going to use the release of a virus, but a real one, to kill a certain amount of people, to cause a giant panic and the shutdown of civilization, to have full control and forced inoculation. And they're just throwing it in their face.
Yeah. Well, you know, they've gotten what they wanted. I mean, you know, as they look at this, I look at 50 years of what's gone on with climate change. In about 50 days, they've been able to do this globally. They've been able to implement the Green New Deal. We could call it, I guess, the CDC New Deal or the NIH New Deal or the COVID New Deal, but they've been able to get everything that they want, Alex, and it just continues to go. And what they want is they want us to have a society that's based on austerity. They take down our standard of living. They want to eliminate
And surveillance.
families.
This is their whole...
Oh, yeah.
I know a clip we can have.
delectable islands, Neverland is the snuggest.
was born in 2021, and I am a medical professional assistant specialized in senior care. I want everyone to feel comfortable, relaxed and at home. I was built to care.
Gosh! Oh, she's the most beautiful thing I ever saw in my life.
I'd like to tell you a story about a movie. A magical movie about a magical car. A musical for children created by British filmmakers in an attempt to compete with Hollywood and Walt Disney. A cheerful fantasy about interventionist foreign policy and the role of espionage in its implementation. Brought to you by a creative team with deep ties to British military intelligence. Released in 1968, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang tells the story of an eccentric inventor, his two kids, a candy company heiress, and most importantly, a car. A singular piece of cutting-edge technology that can travel on water, fly through the air, and make its own decisions. At least in the second half of the movie, which is framed as a story that the inventor shares at a seaside picnic.
That isn't just any old boat out there.
No?
No. That is a private yacht of the notorious Baron Bombburst.
Baron Bombburst?
You have never heard of Baron Bombburst? Ruler of Bulgaria? The most evil man in the world.
Oh!
Yeah.
I never understood why this section of the film had to be framed as a fantasy when the first half of the movie is hardly realistic. But anyway, the car is coveted by the evil Baron Bombburst, ruler of the undemocratic land of Bulgaria. The Baron's spies try to steal the car, but wind up kidnapping the children's wacky grandpa. The inventor, Caractacus Potts, played by Dick Van Dyke, and the candy heiress, Truly Scrumptious, played by Sally Ann Howes, head for Bulgaria with the children. Upon entering Bulgarian airspace, they are met with hostile fire. They quickly learn that children are illegal in Bulgaria, and this immediately puts the Potts children in harm's way. We are then introduced to the film's most memorable character, the child catcher.
Been here somewhere. I can smell them.
Executing a vicious government policy with extreme gusto, the child catcher has terrified generations of children that thought they were watching a children's movie. Brilliantly played by actor and dancer Robert Helpman with snaky grace, the child catcher is creepy on the most visceral fundamental level, and he's become all the more disturbing today, given what we now know about the activities of global elites. The children are captured, and the car is captured. Luckily, Caractacus and Truly have an ally, the toy maker, played by the only actor in this film besides Dick Van Dyke that most Americans would recognize. The toy maker, who only makes toys for adults now, introduces us to a large underground grotto where Bulgaria's children have been hidden. The grotto looks a lot like a Disneyland ride, except that it's populated with grubby kids instead of Caribbean pirates, which is kind of appropriate given the film producer's desire to give Disney a run for the money. Albert Broccoli, one of the producers of the James Bond film franchise, was encouraged to make Chitty Chitty Bang Bang only after the success of Walt Disney's Mary Poppins in 1964, hence the casting of Van Dyke. The production design, by the way, is by Ken Adam, who designed many of the secret layers in James Bond movies, as well as the War Room in Dr. Strangelove. Our heroes get a first-hand look at the inhumanity of the Baron's regime.
Sir, have you come to help us?
And although Caractacus's first order of business is to rescue Grandpa and the kids, he now resolves to help facilitate a full-blown regime change war in the land of Bulgaria.
You want to get out of here, don't you? Yes, come in closer.
The attack on the Baron's castle begins with a classic Trojan horse deception. courtesy of Benny Hill, who introduces a pair of new toys to the Baron's court. Little do they know that these life-size toys are actually undercover agents, meant to distract the court from covert activity in preparation for the siege. Ian Fleming, the author of the original Chitty Chitty Bang Bang book, knew a thing or two about covert operations. In the 1930s, Fleming worked for British intelligence in the UK and the Soviet Union. During World War II, he served as an intelligence officer in the Royal Navy and formulated numerous operations. In 1941, Fleming was in Washington, D.C., helping to draft the blueprint for the Office of the Coordinator of Information, which would eventually become the CIA. After the war, Fleming created the character of James Bond based on people he met in the field. By 1961, his James Bond novels were very popular, boosted by a recommendation from JFK, who listed From Russia with Love as one of his favorite books. That same year, Fleming suffered a heart attack. He spent his time recuperating by writing Chitty Chitty Bang Bang for his son, reportedly. Chitty, the car, is typical of the sort of high-tech gadgetry utilized by James Bond. But the idea that Chitty has a will of its own is more pronounced in the book than in the movie. Another sentient, self-driving car would be introduced by Walt Disney around the same time Chitty Chitty Bang Bang hits theaters.
A mind of his own makes Herbie the soul bug of the love generation.
Back in Bulgaria, the siege has begun. The Baron, by the way, is played by Gert Frube, who also played the quintessential Bond villain, Goldfinger.
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
The Baron, the Child Catcher, and the entire Bulgaria story is not in the original Ian Fleming book. These elements would be introduced in the screenplay, written by another intelligence agent, Roald Dahl, author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The Fantastic Mr. Fox, and James and the Giant Peach. During World War II, Dahl was an RAF pilot fighting in Greece, Egypt, Syria, and Lebanon. He was later appointed to the British Embassy in Washington, D.C., and recruited into British Security Coordination, a covert organization linked to MI6. During this period, Dahl met and worked with Ian Fleming. The U.S. had not yet entered the war at this time, and most Americans wanted to stay neutral.
In the event of war in Europe, I think we should stay out of it entirely.
Another war, not for me. This time America should keep out, and I know I will.
These isolationist views were promoted by the likes of Charles Lindbergh and the America First Committee. Dahl was tasked with discrediting isolationist voices and lobbying Washington insiders, pressuring them to enter the war. Back in Bulgaria, the children, armed with kitchen utensils, are soon joined by their parents, armed with farming tools. This well-armed uprising overwhelms the Baron's security forces, captures his despised policy czar, and leaves the Baron hanging from a rope like Mussolini or Saddam Hussein. Our intrepid British heroes, and one American apparently,
Stand back from the propellers.
quickly prepare to exit the fray. Mission accomplished.
And so, after that, Bulgaria became a free country.
It's not that simple in real life. Since the end of World War II, which remains the gold standard for all subsequent regime change wars, the UK and the US, sometimes in tandem, have forcibly removed countless heads of state throughout the world, often resulting in chaos, civil war, corrupt and oppressive leaders, refugee crises, and blowback against the intervening nation. In 1953, for example, MI6 and the CIA succeeded in ousting Iran's democratically elected prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, and installing the Shah of Iran, who went on to torture and murder thousands of his political opponents until he was deposed in 1979. That same year, Saddam Hussein became the president of Iraq. His ascendancy began 20 years earlier when he took part in the attempted assassination of Prime Minister Qassim, a plot which had the backing of U.S. intelligence. Saddam had a movie made about it in 1980. The editor and co-director of the film was Terrence Young, who directed 3 of the original James Bond movies. During World War II, he was an intelligence officer in the British Army. Despite its poor rate of success, regime change is still a viable option, according to many policymakers and commentators. And it's easy to get swayed by the idea. In 1961, JFK said this.
As the great parliamentarian Edmund Burke said, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing.
Now, who in their right mind would be against this sentiment? Especially since we take it for granted that we are the good guys and our adversaries are evil. This perception is absolutely necessary to any government that wants to convince its population that a regime change war is a good idea. The Barron's regime is a perfect example of the kind of narrative required in such an operation. An enemy with no rationale other than pure evil.
States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil.
These people, they are evil, utterly indifferent to the sanctity of human life. They kill children, rape women.
They abduct women and children and subject them to torture and rape,
leaving the bodies of mothers huddled over their dead children.
They are among the most evil people ever on earth. They cut babies' heads off. They chop women in half.
The Vulgaria narrative presents us with this idealized version of a morally justified and perfectly executed regime change operation.
You stay here.
Was Roald Dahl trying to embed the idea in the minds of the film's audience? Or was he demonstrating just how the whole idea of regime change is pure fantasy?
Is that how the story ends?
Pretty much. But allow me to tell you one more story. In early 1966, a year before Albert Broccoli gave the green light to Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, he was working on the next James Bond film, You Only Live Twice. Broccoli was location scouting in Japan with 4 other members of the production team. The group was scheduled to fly home on March 5th, 1966, but instead canceled their tickets at the last minute in order to watch a ninja demonstration. The plane they were scheduled to board, BOAC Flight 911, crashed near Mount Fuji, killing all 113 passengers and 11 crew members. We should all be thankful for that fortuitous ninja demonstration in Tokyo. Otherwise, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang may have never come into existence and become as beloved the world over as it is today. Thanks for watching.
Killing 6 people and injuring more than 1,000 others. Ceremonies planned today to honor the victims of the terror attack. Eyewitness News reporter Anthony Carlo.
Fall. Now I'm in the limelight cause I rhyme tight. Time to get paid, blow up like the world trade.
Thank you so much for coming out today. 15 in a row. Thanks for making it happen once again. Planting 2,977 flags in honor of each of our fellow Americans that died 24 years ago in the attacks on the Twin Towers.
I think it's a really great way that we kind of reach out to the people, and I think it's a great way that we can show our patriotism to our community.
And planting each.
So there are concerns growing after things got violent in New York City after Monday night's game. Video shows a Spurs fan getting jumped. New York police say they're now searching for a group of people behind this attack. And you can see the Spurs fan walking down the street when a crowd surrounded him, trying to rip off his jersey. And at one point, he's kicked and stomped on. And all that violence is now prompting local leaders and NBA players to call for peace.
Watch this play. This is what frustrated Brunson. Oh, whoa. That's, excuse me, that should be a flagrant one. I can understand why Brunson and then Wemby's laughing at it. Watch it. He wasn't trying to navigate. He decided to run through the defensive player.
To me, that's the same as drawing an offensive foul on a ball handler, though.
The animated
He
film
wasn't trying
follows
to-
Huntrix, a K-pop girl group who moonlight as demon hunters protecting the world from the demonic king Gwaima. Beneath its glossy musical surface lies rich Korean mythology and emotionally driven character arcs, especially around its lead, Rumi. Rumi's demon secret changes everything. The biggest twist in K-pop Demon Hunters is the revelation that Rumi is half-demon. Believed to be the daughter of a demon hunter who died when she was a baby, Rumi has spent her life hiding her true nature with the help of her adopted mother, Celine. Their hope? That by completing the mystical barrier known as the Ha-Moon, they could push back demonic influence and rid Rumi of her inherited darkness. The twist threatens to shatter the bond between Rumi and her bandmates, Mira and Zoe, who are stunned by the secret. The world of K-pop Demon Hunters is built on the idea of generations of hunters, usually female trios, blessed with voices that inspire humanity and forge magical weapons. The film's mythology spans centuries, with past trios fighting evil from the 1600s to the Roaring '20s, up to today's sold-out pop concerts. Rumi's demonic heritage places her at odds with that legacy, but also makes her unique. Gwaima, Jinwoo, and Rumi's connection. The main threat in K-pop Demon Hunters is Gwaima, an ancient demon king who manipulates humans into corruption. His hordes threaten the world, and his influence is insidious. He can speak into people's minds, twisting their desires and eroding their humanity. Jinwoo, initially portrayed as the film's antagonist, is revealed to be a tragic figure. Once a musician, he made a deal with Gwaima for fame, sacrificing his family and turning into a demon. His journey mirrors Rumi's, half-human, half-demon, torn between two worlds. Though he works for Gwaima, Jinwoo is racked with guilt and begs for his memories to be erased so he no longer feels the pain of his past. Rumi, however, sparks something in him. The two form a subtle, almost romantic bond, and despite initially betraying her, Jinwoo redeems himself in the end. During the final battle, he sacrifices himself to save Rumi by taking a deadly blast meant for her. His human spirit lingers long enough to aid her in defeating Gwaima, helping her rebuild the Ha-Moon and drive the Demon King back. The meaning of the blue Ha-Moon. Though the battle is won and a new Ha-Moon is erected, the final scene reveals it's blue, not gold. This signals the barrier isn't as strong or pure as hoped. While Earth may be safe for now, it's clear that Gwaima or other demons could return. The imperfect Ha-Moon leaves room for danger, suggesting that Rumi's battle isn't over. This visual cue opens the door to future stories. While the trio of Rumi
They're demon hunters. The story follows 3 K-pop stars in the band Huntrix, and they're also demon hunters. They protect the world with their singing because it creates a protective barrier that keeps out the demonic forces. The king of the demons, who I'm just going to call Satan because that's basically who he is, comes up with a counter plan to break this barrier. A boy band. It sounds ridiculous, but it actually makes sense in the film. Anyway, the boy band, the Saja Boys, start to break the barrier, which allows demons to come through, so Huntrix has to start hunting them down. The leader of Huntrix, Rumi, starts to fall in love with the leader of the Saja Boys, Jinwoo, and then it leads to a big showdown where Huntrix defeats the demons with the power of their music. Now, despite what you've been told online, none of the good guys in this film are demons. Jinwoo, who's the leader of the demon boy band, is actually a human from 400 years ago. He betrayed his family and couldn't live with the shame, and as punishment, he was sent to the demon realm. Rumi is half demon, and that's one of the twists of the film, but it's never glorified. She's ashamed of her demonic patterns and has to cover them up, and she hides this from her fellow band members. Her story is more akin to a child who came from a broken family. She has to cover up her demonic scars, but they were never her fault to begin with. And in the end, she can only defeat the devil by accepting that she is broken and imperfect and come into the light to be made whole. There's a song in the film called Your Idol, which has upset a lot of Christians because they think it's glorifying sin. But the song is sung by the bad guys. Are you now going to throw out VeggieTales because of the bunny song?
The bunny, whoa, I love the bunny.
But even with that, the song Your Idol isn't glorifying sin. It's a warning against sin. You need to realize that a lot of the writers for this film were actually Christian, and if you look at the lyrics, you see that. The song actually opens with Latin that drew from a medieval hymn that says, "On the day of wrath, you will be reduced to ash, cursed and burned in eternal flames." Does that sound like glorifying sin to you? But here are more of the lyrics, and don't worry, I'm not going to sing. I don't want to cause any wailing and gnashing of teeth. Keeping you in check, keeping you obsessed, play me on repeat in your head. Anytime it hurts, play another verse. I can be your sanctuary. Know that I'm the only one right now. I will love you more when it all burns down. More than power, more than gold. You gave me your heart. Now I'm here for your soul. In other words, the song is a warning about sin. It's saying that when we idolize something that is bad, when we give our hearts to something that is evil, it will eventually take our soul. Now contrast this with the ending song that finally defeats the king of the demons, which I think is the most overtly Christian song in the entire film. Right before this, Rumi is exposed for being a half-demon. Her friends abandon her for lying. The protective barrier gone. The king of the demons is about to feast on several human souls. Rumi is at her lowest point, and all she has left to fight with is the truth. She accepts that she is broken and imperfect, that she's made mistakes, but she still is going to stand up against evil. And with that, the demons can no longer use shame against her. Now, some Christians think this song is actually glorifying darkness, but that's not what it's doing. Listen to the lyrics. I broke into a million pieces and I can't go back, but now I'm seeing all the beauty in the broken glass. The scars are a part of me, darkness and harmony. My voice without the lies, this is what it sounds like. The darkness the song is talking about is our past sins, our scars. We accept that we are all broken and have made mistakes. As Romans 3:23 says, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But the Bible also teaches that what we meant for evil, God meant for good. Even though we broke into a million pieces because of our sin and shame, God is still able to work good out of that. And that is what this song is teaching. Accept that you're broken. Accept that you made mistakes. But you can still overcome that by stepping into the light and exposing your scars to the truth. As they say in the song, so we were cowards, so we were liars, so we're not heroes, we're still survivors, the dreamers, the fighters, no lying I'm tired, but dive in the fire and I'll be right there by your side. Those lyrics are very important for children to hear because they teach that even though we've made mistakes, even though we're not heroes, we can still stand up and fight against evil and do our part to make the world a better place.
About to begin. Now comes the show. The flame has been extinguished. We invite the athletes to be comfortable and be seated, and please remain on the field. To start off the celebration, we want tonight's audience to participate in making this magic begin. So if you haven't already, please take the flashlights out of the plastic bag and prepare them to light on the color of blue. Is everybody ready? Flashlights will go red, white, or blue. There they go. Put your done it already. On. 1, 2, 3. Flashlights on. Reminiscent of the card trick, Peter, at the opening. A 100,000 flashlights. Thus spake Zarathustra. Music of Richard Strauss, remembered well from the movie 2001, of course. Something's going to happen here now. Here comes the spaceship. You believe this? The crowd just beginning to see it now. Oh, it's several hundred feet high still. Shining its light, finding this strange sight in the small planet it has discovered, huh? Earth signals back from the center of the field. Earth signals back.
He's still at about 1,000 feet. Trumpets and the lights signaling to the spaceship giving its return signal. Friend or foe? Signal from Earth. Make contact now. Looks like it's going to be all right. Will they land? Spaceship weighs 2 tons. Powered by jet fuel. As I said, that's the real moon. Only the spaceship has been created. Now,
methinks we have a visitor.
The alien himself. That is no one on stilts. That is a man 7 feet 8 inches tall.
Possibilities of human achievement. For almost 100 years, you have celebrated the best that humanity has to offer. You call it the Olympic Games. And for that, and for the cities which have kept the Olympic ideal alive, I salute you.
Was Alexander the Great the son of Pharaoh Nectanebo II? According to Greek accounts, following the Persian conquest of Memphis, Nectanebo II escaped south to Nubia. He ended his life there, amid the Kushites. However, there is a myth associated with Alexander's invasion of Egypt. According to the myth, Nectanebo escaped north rather than south, ending up in Macedonia. There, he introduced himself at the court of the Macedonian king, as an Egyptian mystic. He later took the form of the deity Amun, and fathered Alexander the Great. So, according to the story, Alexander was the son of Nectanebo, not Philip. The story was published in the Alexander Romance, a chronicle of Alexander's life and exploits, by an anonymous author known as Pseudo-Callisthenes.
Operate at the top, 101. Brunson gets it, fires up a three. Shot no good, the chip, it's gone! It's gone! It's gone! With 1.2 remaining, Knicks take the lead. OG Anunoby, and it's 107-106. Towns will
Now, I showed y'all how the 110 and the 210 are symbolic of Christ's birthday. So we're going to apply this to the New York Knicks. So the 212 is symbolic of 112 or 212, right? So what happened on Nisan 12, which would be around Passover during the time before Christ's crucifixion? This is what we want to investigate, because on 212 or Nisan 12 is when Judas Iscariot began his plot against Jesus Christ.
News.